Hello everyone and welcome to episode 79, Controlling the Matter with Johannes Gutbrod of
In Response,
a legacy podcast.
I'm Philipp Klein
I am Daniel.
And I'm Peter Plank.
and we're talking about legacy.
Most of the time.
You are listening to In Response, a legacy podcast. A show where three handsome guys talk about their favorite Magic the Gathering format, legacy.
I'm Peter Plank, the artificer. I've got everything at hand in my Goblin Welders toolbox.
I am Daniel, the scientist. I ponder precisely about the next move that decides the fate of my opponents.
I'm Philipp Klein, the rogue. I use the graveyard to fuel opponents with agony.
And now, lean back and enjoy.
So, like you probably heard already, today is a big day for us. We have a new guest on our show. I mean, it has been a long time that we had a guest on our show. Am I right?
Absolutely. I think the last one was maybe...
Tom the Decker?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe.
I think it was Saha Mehadi last year when we talked about Wilds of Eldraine.
Could be.
Something like that. But yeah, check those old episodes out. And what you also should check out is our Patreon, because we always need more of you guys. So go to our patreon.com/response_legacy. So shout out to Matt Duncan, Christian Neutz, and Moritz Eichmeier. Thank you very much for your contribution. So who's our designated guest today?
I mean, one thing, without spoiling, we heard he's a teacher.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's true.
So he must be really good at controlling the kids in the room, basically.
Because they're running around all the time.
Yeah.
So back to the person. We have Johannes Gutbrod here. Mm-hmm. He's a German legacy aficionado. And yeah, he recently won the Austrian Legacy Masters.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's not a bad achievement, actually, because it's probably the biggest tournament in Austria.
So welcome, Johannes. How are you today?
Thank you guys for the warm welcome. I'm really happy to be here, that you're having me in your show. I'm having a good day and I'm really interested to talk a lot about Legacy, about my favorite deck, and to hear about you guys.
I think we share the same feeling. We want to get to know you because when speaking of Legacy in particular, when you are based around Europe, I'm pretty sure that if you're a little bit into Legacy, you must stumble upon your name at some point, because you, I think, play Legacy for a pretty long time already. And we want to know how you actually got into the format and how you started it. Because we know back from the days when it was popular, you were pretty successful also in the card market series. We want to hear a bit also on that. Which is something that unfortunately is not existing anymore. But still, there are some good results that you did in your past, and we definitely want to hear about this. So how actually did you get into Legacy?
Yeah, so let's start at the beginning. I was playing a little bit of casual Legacy when I was in 6th grade back in Nuremberg, Germany. And a few years later, when I was doing my Abitur, we were just chilling and waiting for our next courses, and just took our casual cards from like 6 years ago, and I played with a friend. And there was another friend who was very intelligent but very quiet guy, Max Lawrence. Probably never will listen to this podcast, but he's really a good player. And he watched me playing, and we were not really much friends into each other, but he told me, "Hey, Johannes, you're playing well. Did you ever hear of Legacy?" And I said, no, what is Legacy? We started talking, and he told me about the format. He was playing Team America back then with Tombstalker and Sinkhole. It was like some really old school tempo deck, and he had some beautiful cards, and he told me about it, and I told him, yes, sounds great, but I can say one thing: I will never ever spend more than 100 euros on a Legacy deck.
Classic.
Yes, probably you know my legacy deck. Probably some guys of you have seen it on stream, so I think that escalated quite quickly. Yeah, that got me started really, and then I was playing with him back in Nuremberg in Funtainment. That's not existing anymore since like 8 years. And there were some other guys that were telling me that it's not a good idea to cast a Brainstorm the minute that you draw it. Because I was playing with Max and I was like drawing Brainstorm, casting Brainstorm. First thing I did, draw another 3 cards. And then they told me, it's better you hold it. Brainstorm often is just a sorcery. And so from these people I got to learn, and then I was like in other areas of life, I was always very focused to compete, and this didn't stop at Legacy, and then I started to take it more seriously and try to become better. And I think after 3 years of playing, I could say that I was like more into it, taking it more seriously, and then came all the other things like MKM series, sponsorings, and other things alongside, I think.
Oh wow, so that's a nice history you've got there. And it all started with one of the coolest decks ever. I think it's probably Daniel's most favorite deck ever. It's Team America, right?
It's definitely, I never get to play it actually.
Oh.
When it was good. Because I actually started Legacy after it was a popular deck. But I definitely like the color combination, and it's one of my favorite decks of all time, for sure, yeah.
Fun fact here, Daniel's Twitter name, Flying Delver, also resembles Tombstalker.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. Because it is a flying creature, and you have to delve it to cast it, so it's a flying delver.
Mind blown.
So yeah, with the history now being told, so you said like sponsorings, MKM series, or nowadays it would be card market series. So what were your biggest achievements of your basically legacy career up to this point?
Oh, that's always a difficult question. But without bragging, like for me, my biggest success for myself was winning like the 2 card market series in Frankfurt and Prague. They were like 3 months after each other, and I played 2 different decks, and it was one tournament was about 450 players, and I decided that I wanted to play Sneak and Show because Miracles just got banned. And then some months later, I was talking a lot with Claudio Bonani. He's a good friend of mine from Italy, and you all know him. He's GP winner and a really good control player and a really cool person overall. And he told me, I think we should still consider playing Miracles, just playing it differently. And then we were playing it with Days and Monastery Mentor, which was kind of, I have to admit, it's like looking forward to the deck we will discuss later. It has similar strategies. It was like tempo control, I'd say, and I was playing this deck in Prague, where I won the MKM series with the Miracles deck, and I think for me that was really fulfilling because many people thought the deck is dead, and it shows that if you try to think outside the box and you know how to play your deck, and you of course get a lot of luck. It is not possible without a lot of luck to spike like this. Then you can have like a really great tournament overall.
Yeah, I think I remember actually this event because some guys of us were also there, like physically, and I just remember that it was a pretty high stakes situation. I was just there, with my rookie Chant deck or something. I had no idea about Legacy because I could not really afford the cards, and I just thought I had Modern Chant, so I transitioned into Legacy Chant and just played there. I think I did really badly. And I was really impressed with all those blue mages running around, and I think this was a big moment when this miracle, and I remember this Mentor Days Legacy deck also very, very sweet, I gotta say.
That was also the
yes.
the time when I think Alexander Klinger was also playing in this I think he competed for top 8. Am I right?
This is one of our local guys from the Austrian Legacy League.
Ah, okay.
And
cool.
he played Stompy, Mono Red Stompy, and I think he also top 8. But I'm not sure if this was this exact event or not.
It was
I'm not
one
sure,
in
yeah.
Frankfurt. I think he top 8'd there.
Yeah.
But this was the one with the cheater in the top 8, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, the one with the true name Nemesis deck.
No, it was like
Ragdoll.
bribing. It was bribing.
I can't remember.
The reason.
Was
why
it not
they-
the shuffle cheat?
No, it was bribing, I think.
Okay, I don't get
Because
it.
of like the
There were so many events and so many card markets.
and so many
Yeah.
cheaters. No.
Everything is so blurry right now.
Yeah, Card Marketeers was like definitely, it was so high stakes that you got into the top 8 of the overall standings of the year. I think it was where you get like €300 for every event to compete in.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a show up fee, like a price, show up price, something.
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Yeah, that
Very,
was,
very unfortunate that they discontinued that.
yeah.
I really liked them. I mean, I think it was 2 times in Prague for myself. Yeah, it was pretty nice events all the time.
Yeah.
So Johannes, you were like 1 or 2 years in the big players for Card Market, or was it like the whole time existed since you started with Legacy?
I actually think
competing
it's blurry in my mind as well. So I'm on the tour. I know that I had like a sponsoring, and they offered me a sponsoring after some results, but I don't know if it has been before or after like the event in Frankfurt, because before there were like several events like Bazaar of Moxen series, like in Annecy or like Ovino, and I didn't never like win any of these tournaments, but I made several top 8s or top 16s and had overall pretty good results playing like various control decks, like mostly miracles. And I think that's how they got to know my name, and that was like the start of like this kind of, I will not say career because it didn't really last, but it was like an interesting part of my life for sure.
So yeah, with like Card Market Series being basically dropped since COVID, we don't really have a big series around in Europe. We only have like the 4 times a year, the 4 seasons as the biggest, the pinnacle of Legacy. And after COVID, the community project that we also are a part of, the European Legacy Masters, basically hit the ground running. And if I remember correctly, Johannes, you are a 2-time competitor now with this year?
For the E11?
Or
For the European Legacy Masters, yeah.
I actually don't know. Last year I didn't compete because I missed it really, really close, and I was very sad about it. But it was probably my fault because I didn't play well enough. So this year I will try my best to make it up.
Yeah. So this year we are totally rooting for you for top 8, at least.
Because this is, of course, the biggest achievement that you had since your career. You won the Austrian Legacy Masters.
Yeah, beautiful wins.
Yes. This was happening a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we want to hear about this event, of course. We are very interested. And you won one of our precious slots for Austria. In that case, to compete in the European Legacy Masters for this year in September. And yeah, we want to hear about what deck did you choose? What did you bring to the table to pilot it to victory in the end?
Yeah, sure. I think most people already have seen the deck lists, and I think up to now there are like many players like successfully piloting decks like this in several like challenges on MVGO and something like this. As I said after the tournament, like the list, the basic idea is from Marc-Eric Vogt, who I play test a lot with. But the strategy which lies behind it is like pretty much older. For me, I was thinking about it before the podcast. When was the first time that we really played Days in a control deck. And I think it was actually Claudio Bonani winning the GP with Man for Miracles with Days. And I think this is a strategy that I was playing Days in control like over the last years. From time to time, I was playing a sweet deck when Expressive Iteration was legal, with Expressive Iteration, Predict, DRC, Monastery Mentor, Days. It was like tempo control deck as well, I think. And it's kind of the same now when we are talking about the don't know how to call the deck, like the Beanstalk Frog deck, which kind of has the basic idea to have two really good 2-mana engines and a really reduced mana curve overall. So these factors make it possible to include Days in your deck and to switch from the control route to a more like tempo kind of style. Even like with the last things I changed on my list, like playing a second Stifle main deck, which kind of really gives you an opportunity to, in certain matchups, to be the aggressor, because you just can play like Stifle your fetch, play a 2-drop, Days, Wasteland, and play like a normal tempo game. Meanwhile, having like really, I think, the strongest control engine that is actually in the format, which is still up the Beanstalk in combination with Leyline Bindings and the other like CMC 5+ cards. So you're very flexible, and I think this makes this deck a really strong contender. And of course, like with any other control deck, and I think this was like the important thing for your tournament as well, I knew there was going to be a lot of scam, and I faced like, I think, at least 3 scam in the Swiss. And as you know, I included 2 Nile Spellbomb main deck, which really helped the matchup. The Stifle helps the matchup. The Daces help the matchup because you become much more leaner, much more to the ground. You can interact more in the early turns. And like from my testing, the matchup is really positive with this Frog deck against the normal scam list. I feel quite favored. And post-spot it gets even better because you have like Carpets and Veil of Summer. So I think it was a really good choice knowing the meta. And for me, it's like playing Control since ages. It's always been the worst when you didn't know the meta, or the meta was so versatile and your deck wasn't like super strong because it had like cards like Top and Counterbalance. If the meta was so wild that you didn't know how to build your control deck, it's really hard to take advantage of it. But if there is 40% scam and you can like try to build your control deck to beat scam, to kind of have some good matchups against other decks as well, then I think you can go really favored into the tournament with the control deck if you like are experienced playing control or these kind of decks. So that was my thinking when I got to Linz to play like this kind of style of deck, and including these cards which have like applications in the matchups that I was going to face.
So pretty sure that you were the only one that registered such kind of deck, and it was also really interesting to see on stream because we seldom see strategies like that. You don't play Yorion in this list. It's simple 60 cards.
Oh yes.
Yeah, because Yorion just sucks.
Sure. Yeah, like
we are the official Yorion
like
hater club.
Yeah, I feel you. Like I tested it, I think Mark tested it, and we were going back and forth, but overall it reduces your consistency and it's just not worth it, I think. No, like on the long run, it's not the way you want.
Yeah, especially when you pair it with Days and as you
Yeah.
said, when you opt
worse.
for a tempo style game plan, Yorion is really not helping that strategy at all. So it's actually
That's true.
Yeah, one thing that would have changed a lot, I think, where with Yorion is like the mana base. You basically opted for no basics, which would have been maybe even a little bit greedy for being 4-color. But on the other hand, you have included 2 Wastelands. Is basically the Life from the Loam the kind of basic slot in a deck?
Yeah, I think it's
the glue that keeps everything together.
yeah. The life from Lom is important. Yes, for sure. It helps like in many of the worst matchups, like against Eldrazi or against the new Cloud Post deck. But I think it's just impossible to play like any basic in these kinds of decks. It's the problem is like I think many players not playing like too much control have the thinking, okay, I need to get that basic into play, and I have the island, and then I can develop. But the thing is, like in the like mid-range tempo strategies, if you play against them, they at least have 2 to 4 wastelands. So you have the basic island, they waste your like Bayou or Savannah that you play afterwards, and then you're even more stuck than if you had a tropical. So you kind of have to take into account that you get wasted and to play along. But it's better than before, because like controllers before, they try to resolve Minsk and Boo or the One Ring 4 drops without developing the board. And now we're trying to resolve 2 drops like Beanstalk, like Leyline Bending, even a 1 drop sometimes in the game, or maybe a 2 drop. Psychic Frog. So your mana curve is just much lower to the ground, which makes Wasteland less of an enemy than before, because it was the worst time, the feeling for me against as a control player, just playing your lands, getting beaten down by a Delver, and then just getting wasted and not being able to play your expensive cards in hand. And now you have so much more possibilities, which makes much more interactions possible, and I think which overall strengthens the deck by a lot.
Yeah, especially with, as you said, like a lot of faster decks, like tempo-ish decks, like tempo mid-rangey decks. The opposing daces are also like a big problem. And with being, as you said in the interview, if I remember correctly, after the tournament, being heavily 2-drop focused in Psychic Frog and the Up the Beanstalk as the card advantage engines, your daces also get a lot better because your opponent is also a little bit more fragile on the mana base.
So, speaking of everyone's favorite amphibious creature, what about Psychic Frog? I mean, it's we already talked about the tempo-ish idea, the mix and match out of tempo and control. How did you feel about Psychic Frog in a control deck? Is it more like is it more like you want to develop plan A or plan B, or is it more like switchable on the fly? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand what you mean. I think it's really dependent like on several factors, being it firstly your starting hand, secondly the matchup you face, maybe even like how the game progresses. But I think overall the cards are good against different matchups. For example, against a deck with a lot of removal, like other control strategies, like, I don't know, an Esper Tempo deck, which plays like Swords to Plowshares and like their own creatures, so Psychic Frog will not be so likely to connect. Up the Beanstalk is your best card, because if you resolve it and you just play draw go, you will get ahead over the turns and probably win the game. And there are matchups where like Psychic Frog is absolutely like super great against like decks that don't have any removal or a few removals, like combo decks, like the Cloud Post deck, even in a lesser extent the Scam deck, which just doesn't have a lot of removal main deck. So now you have the possibility to go to a plan which gives you an early card advantage possibility, while being in seldomly occasions a fast win condition. Like I had a game against combo where I just like discarded nearly my whole hand into a like turn 2 frog and just connected 2 or 3 times with it, and he made some self-inflicted damage and I won via this route. It gives some occasions that are not possible in like traditional control decks, and it's another win condition which really is a problem, I think, for control in general, because you kind of want to play no win conditions at all, but you have to play some win conditions, and then it's the question which win condition. If you just play Uru, you can get extracted, and you play Force Eolingard, which is bad for the mana base and hard to cast overall. So Psychic Frog kind of glues in between those areas of like win conditions, while being just a really versatile and strong card.
Yeah, one thing that you said, like with being fast to close out games, I think historically for controllers was like pretty bad if you lost game 1 or even lost game 2, because like often it results in a draw, and having like a card in the deck that can supercharge for like 3-4 connects for the win is like a really nice thing to avoid draws. Like previously it was like hopefully Snapcaster Bolt maybe connects for the win for the modern mages to remember. But
I loved it. I died my fair share against that.
Me too. Yes, that's true.
so yeah.
And yeah, just another close out to the Psychic Frog here. We see it everywhere. It's played up and down in all the lists. It's played. It surpassed even Orcish Bowmaster as the most played creature in Legacy.
Yeah.
There are already people thinking about that this card might be too strong for the format. What's your opinion on that?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't disagree with these people, because like the metagame share of Psychic Frog is like huge, and I think it's not the same as the discussion from Orcish Bowmasters like half a year ago or something like that, because the card is just more like has more interesting play patterns, and like Orcish Bowmaster could handle the other Orcish Bowmaster, which was a problem from like the card design or the tactic design, I think, overall. But now it's changed, of course, it's fine. But I think seeing so much Psychic Frog played, I could see like a ban coming in, like not the next banning announcement, but maybe like 3 months later, after they have banned Grief, which I think is most likely to be expected. I think the card creates interesting play patterns, like counting how many cards has my opponent in hand, how many cards can I discard, can I go like a little bit of a gambling, can I go all in and discard to make my Psychic Frog bigger than his, can I discard into my Psychic Frog to like grow my Murktide like in a combat, like some small tricks which kind of make it an interesting card, I think, seeing play overall. So I'm not too sure. What's your opinion on it?
Psychic Frog is definitely extremely strong. But like you said, and we also saw this a lot of times on stream, the problem with Grief, in our opinion, is that that this card has a lot of issues with non-games. It's like you don't have a turn 0 play against the Grief Reanimate Grief, because Swords or Force of Will, everything doesn't do a lot against it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's always just, okay, I discard you 2 times and you're dead, basically. Or it's just a non-game, therefore. Psychic Frog, on the other hand, leads to, like you said, to very interesting situations and to games that are not that lopsided, I think, because it's really strong, but you still have
So like
the illusion that you're playing a game.
Yes.
Yeah, I played my fair share in not Legacy, but in Modern last week against Discard, and it's a little bit problematic because, as I said, like you feel like you have still a chance to be in the game, but like the second connection of a Psychic Frog is game over. And I mean, it dies to removal, but it's only, I mean, we have nowadays a lot of removal. It's only Lightning Bolt that really got shut down. We have like Fatal Push coming around. We have the Swords. We have the Leyland Binding. We have the Pyroblasts. As a Painter player myself, I love my fair share of like 7 blasts now in the main because the card is so strong. But yeah, you need to have like key answers against it or you can't play the game. And it's like, if you're going into a little bit of the combo route without too much removal, because main deckable, you don't really are allowed to have too much interaction without stack interaction, it's kind of getting hard.
Because of Scam. because Scam is such a big player. And I think maybe with the removal of Grief, we will see a fair share more of Prismatic Ending.
Maybe.
And Prismatic Ending, I think is maybe just a pretty strong card against Control or against Beanstalk maybe, and Psychic Frog in general.
But the good point, and what I just mentioned, and we discussed about Grief being likely banned, or let's say surely banned in August. We'll see about that. Be interesting, since you mentioned you built this control deck mostly against Scaminator and the format. Now that you have the ELM invite that is happening at the beginning of September, which is just after the expected bannings, how would you see your control deck in a world without Grief? Would you still play this kind of strategy? Would you adapt? Or would you just switch around and, since you don't know really the meta, play a completely different deck? For example, for an event like ELM.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it really depends on the bannings. Because I really think actually many people are already experimenting with blue-black lists without Grief, which seem kind of competitive. So I think with this in mind, you can kind of build your control deck alongside, but you would probably play different, for example, without the Spellbombs main deck, if you see that like none of the top decks are like using the Greyard anymore. I think like the card quality, like the level of power of Up the Beanstalk and Psychic Frog is still strong enough to play the deck. But you have like to really look into the meta. For example, I think which could be a really problematic card is Harbinger of the Seas. We saw it in stream, even played against me. And I think for me, I think the best option I have in mind at the moment is playing like 2 Dismember in the sideboard, because it gives an out against Magos of the Moon from like Painter strategies as well, which kind of is like more expected than like even the Blood Moon in this matchup. And I think many of these like mid-range tempo decks are playing the Harbinger in the sideboard, and you really don't have an answer other than resolving your carpet first, but it's just like not always an answer, and they can bounce it with the Brazen Borrower. So I think having 2 of that card on the board, which is just overall a flexible card, could help in a meta where I expect these cards in the sideboard. But like back to your question, I think you really have to see how the meta is developing, and if the meta is totally blind and I have no idea what decks will be played, then I think Control is probably not the best choice, to be honest. But I would be sad because I don't know what to play then. I just love playing my Force of Will, and just Up the Beanstalk is just so good. I don't know. Maybe you saw the one match where I played too slow because I timed out, but I had 4 Up the Beanstalk in play and had like a whole board and just couldn't kill my opponent in time. But it's just such a great feeling, and every Control player on the planet will probably agree that this just feels too good.
It's just living the dream.
Yes.
But yeah, as I said, like Dismember is like a mainstay answer in like in Cloud Post to previously answer the Magos of the Moon and stuff like that. But we also have like another matchup basically shaping up with Modern Horizon 3, and I think you devoted to Consigned to Memory also specifically for this matchup. It's Eldrazi Stomp. It's kind of the new kid in the block. And yeah, how do you feel in this kind of matchup?
I actually didn't test that matchup a lot, but on paper it feels really, really hard, to be honest. The matchup, I think if they come into the game, they can easily outvalue you because of all the cast triggers and all the interactions they have. So I think really the best strategy is like to board in your Wasteland, to try to be the aggressor in the matchup, to play on the board and try to get advantage, try to stifle the cast triggers, try to consign to memory all their triggers, or even counter the Eldrazi with it. So I think you have to know your role in the matchup, as like very often with Control, and still I think the matchup is difficult. So if this gets played a lot, then I think the deck gets worse.
So Would you consider even botting out up the Beanstalk for this case, for example?
No, I don't think, no. But
Or is this something that you never would?
Yeah,
Bought
basically, I would never board out up the Beanstalk, but I have to probably make a boarding plan for if this matchup becomes more popular. But with my current board, I don't have so much to bring in, so I think I would not shave up the Beanstalk now, because still there are games where you can play turn 2 Beanstalk, turn 3 Beanstalk removal, and then just overwhelm them with your resources. It's still possible. Yeah. So I think just general strategy is not like to keep hands that have like 3 lands, ponder, and like nothing, force of will. I don't know, that's just like you want to have an engine or an early creature. Yeah. And normally I would like always keep like land ponder is like always a keep, so blue land ponder. So I think that's something you have to keep in mind probably.
So basically living the Brian Koval dream, island ponder keep.
Yeah.
But yeah, do we have any other matchups that we specifically want to talk about?
I think these were the 2 biggest things that are now emerging in times of Eldrazi now in the metagame. Everything else is just a little bit too uncertain for me. I mean, there was this new deck with Ocelot Pride.
This energy
that went second in the last challenge. But I think at the moment there's a lot of flavor of the month. People are experimenting. People are expecting bans to happen in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think people are also starting to avoid playing Grief.
Yeah,
and actively trying new things. There's a lot of new other exciting cards to explore through Modern Horizons 3, and it's kind of already shifts nicely into the banned Grief meta game, maybe. Like you mentioned, Johannes, if you see this blue-black version that is not playing Grief, or maybe Eldrazi decks, or maybe, I don't know, I would be very surprised if an energy deck would be in the tier list of Legacy at some point, but maybe.
The door is not closed.
The door is not closed, yeah, anything is possible with these Modern Horizons cards. But
yeah, that's true. I think we can conclude the episode here.
Exactly.
So it was very, very great to have you here, Johannes. It was nice to meet you. It was a real pleasure to talk with you about our favorite beloved format. So, Johannes, where can we find you on social media? Do you have anything for us to share?
I'm actually pretty bad on social media, as I try like not to concentrate too much on that, but like probably you can reach me on Facebook or like over several legacy groups which I'm into, and like some people have wrote to me over Facebook after the event, and I'm always happy to talk about control and like to try new things. So this should always be a possibility, or just like go to the next big legacy tournament. I will probably try to attend to grind further and to share the love for our great format.
Sounds very good.
That's very nice to hear. So if you like what we are doing, consider following us on our social media. It's @response_legacy. Also like and subscribe on Spotify and on our YouTube channel. It helps us out tremendously to reach more people. And if you like what I'm doing, I'm Finnick MTG, PHINEK MTG on X, formerly known as Twitter.
I am Flying Delver, also known as Daniel, and you can find me on Twitter @FlyingDelver there also.
And I'm Peter. You can find me on Twitter. It's @UnicornLord, but the O in the Lord is a 0.
See you in 2 weeks.
In response, the end.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye, guys.
This was In Response, a Legacy podcast. If you enjoyed the ride, feel free to support the show by following, leaving a review, or subscribe on patreon.com/response_legacy.